Hi there guys, Quayle here. Today we are checking out the fantastic Monolith pedal from Black Country Customs. Let's go! So as I mentioned, today we are checking out the Monolith from Black Country Customs, or from Laney, who do Black Country Customs. Here it is, and it's a, again, beautiful looking pedal. If you've checked out any of the other videos for the Black Country Customs range on this channel, you'll know they're great looking pedals. They're handmade in the UK with really high quality components, but they don't cost the earth. They're not like crazy boutique prices, and they look great. They've got these kind of vintage style knobs on that Laney or Black Country Customs have used for their custom amplifier range. They look fantastic, and they've also got the same layout that you'll find for the other pedals in the range. So you've got your 4 knobs for controlling various different parameters, and then in the middle you've got a 3-way switch, which is going to give us different types of distortion. Other than that, you've got silent switching, so as you can hear, there's no pops or clicks, you'll just hear the actual switch itself, and it's a high quality latching switch. We've got input and output, obviously, and then we've got our center negative 9-volt DC input. So it's a very straightforward pedal, but it's a great sounding thing, and actually a lot more versatile than you will find for a standard distortion pedal, as you'll see shortly. Now that is in part due to the 3-way voicing switch, but also due to the very interesting EQ or distortion shaping section that they've got going on with this pedal, which we'll check out in a second. So the controls are very straightforward. We have distortion amount or distortion, volume, so you could use this as a boost if you wanted to as well. There's plenty of volume boost on tap. Then we've got really interesting controls underneath. R stands for range and T stands for tone. But the tone control is a little bit more versatile than you might imagine. It's not just adding in high-end frequencies as you dial to the right. Although even if it is doing that, I'm not sure if it isn't just doing that, but it sounds like it's doing more to my ears, especially in combination with the range control. Now the range control, it controls really how much low end is allowed into the distortion circuit. Now in effect what that does, it's a little bit like a more refined version of a depth control on an amplifier, but it does a little bit more. So it's literally the amount of low end that is allowed to go through the distortion circuit. Therefore, when you dial it up, you're getting less low end in the circuit. But rather than just giving you less low end, it actually affects the character of the distortion as well, which you'll hear shortly when we start to dial it in and out. So in combination with the 3-way switch, you can actually get a whole range of different distortion characteristics here, which is great. So the 3-way switch, if we switch the pedal on, first thing you'll notice is it's nice and quiet. If I roll up, that's nice and quiet. You can see the distortion here is almost maxed out. It's really, really quiet, which is great. We're running into a clean amp. I'll go through the setup in a second. In the middle position with the pink LED, you can't beat a good pink LED, we actually have an overdrive setting. So this is more of a kind of transparent overdrive, almost TS style or Tube Screamer style overdrive, but there's no clean bleed here, I don't think anyway. I don't think there's a clean bleed. This could be used for either pushing the front end of an already distorted amplifier, or without adding too much compression, of course, into the circuit, or it could be used as an actual overdrive, and kind of pick dynamic sensitivity would work with this. It's the least compressed of the overdrives or the distortions that we've got going on here, and as such, Black Country Customs have labelled it OD for overdrive. In the lower position, which they've actually got as D2 here, we get the blue LED, and that is our least compressed distortion. Or in actual fact, it's the first distortion, but it's less compressed than you'll find with the upper distortion, but it's more compressed than the overdrive, if that makes sense. So it's really the second most compressed setting on the pedal. And as we switch to the upper position, we get the red LED. And as usual, red means danger. That's the most compressed, the most distorted kind of sound you're going to get from this particular pedal. Now, the other thing that we're going to do here is I'm running this completely into a clean amp. I'm actually using a Laney Lionheart 2x12 combo. Now this combo is a single-ended Class A combo, and it's clean as clean can be. And I'm running the volume on the amp not too high, so we're actually hearing the true distortion characteristic of this pedal. But what I am going to do in order to give you the most saturated sound is I do have tucked away over here the Steel Part Boost. Now you can check the Steel Part Boost video out on my channel. We'll have the link below. And that is going to boost the front end of this to give you the most amount of distortion. But of course you could use this into an already distorted amp if you wanted to boost the distortion or saturation of the amp even further, which it would work really, really well for. So we're going to do that as well. The signal chain here, just before we get going with the sounds, I'll let you hear the clean tone first, is, as I mentioned, the Laney Lionheart 2x12 combo. That is running into a 2-notes Torpedo Captor X, which is running a very similar style 2x12 combo with G1265H speakers in, and it's mic'd up with a Royer R121 and an S1057, then you're going to hear a little bit of reverb and delay, which is just running on my pedal board into the front of the amp, and it is only a little bit, I promise. I'm not going overboard with this one because you want to hear the characteristic of the pedal. I know people always complain about that. So let's hear the clean tone. I'm using my Ibanez TQM1. We'll start with the neck pickup and then I'll switch down to the bridge. So a relatively dark clean tone, which I think is a good platform, sort of neutral clean tone for this kind of pedal. So we'll start in the OD position in the middle. We've got the distortion maxed out, volume roughly at unity. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to leave these two settings or controls where you can see them. So what we're on, about 5 or 6 there, and then about the same on the range, and we get this. This is the Overdrive. So this is the least compressed of all the settings, and again it's running into quite a dark sound. You could brighten this up by having a brighter lead tone if you want to, sorry, clean tone if you wanted to. But I really like the way this sounds, and again it's nice and dynamic. So what I want to do first, before we play with the range and the tone control, is let you hear the 3-way switch with the distortion maxed out. So, as I say, we've got this maxed out here. Let's go up to the upper position. This is the most compressed and it's more of a distortion characteristic. Okay, so you can hear basically as we switch through those, we're getting slightly more compression for the blue sound and then a lot more compression for the red sound or the upper position. Okay, now that's cranked, so let's dial the distortion back a little bit and hear the same 3 settings again before we even touch the tone and the range controls. Here's the clean tone for reference. That's the characteristic that you're getting from each of those 3 different positions on the switch. And again, I've got it set up fairly dark here, but you could set it up for a brighter sound if you wanted to, and the pedal will respond exactly as you'd expect through a brighter amp. That's entirely up to you. Having said that, we can obviously play with the tone control and the range control to further shape the sound. So we're going to do this to start with in the middle position, and then again, once I've dialed in a sound, I'll switch between the 3 different positions so you can hear the effect. Let's play with the tone control first. So at the moment, we've got this sound. dial in more tone, and obviously things get brighter. And at this point you can really hear that the overdrive setting here is pretty pick sensitive actually when you roll the tone control up. So again, that would work really nicely to push an amp or kind of just give you a lighter bluesy kind of characteristic, which is great from a distortion pedal. Now, if we dial the tone control back, on this particular setting with this amp, we end up in kind of like a duller territory. But for a surprisingly low amount of gain, there's an absolute ton of sustain here, and I'm not loud in the room either, which is really impressive. It's got a nice kind of easy to play, slightly compressed characteristic to it, which feels wonderful to play. You probably need a little bit of a volume boost when you're on the upper and the lower setting compared to the overdrive, because they're more compressed obviously. So that gives you an idea of what the tone control sounds like at the most extreme settings. Let's go back to about 8 and play with the range control. So at the moment, the range control in the mid position is allowing some of the bass frequencies to slip through into the distortion in the circuit. Now, if we roll this all the way out, you'll hear the low end increasing. Then as we dial all the way up, if anything, the distortion gets a little bit more open sounding, or in this case overdrive gets a little bit more open sounding because there's less of the low end coming through. Now this gets more extreme depending on how you've got the pedal set. So if we increase the distortion further, there you can really hear it kicking in. And now we've got almost all, if not all, of the low end coming through into the distortion circuit. So it's a little bit of a kind of fatter, fluffier sound. Dial this all the way up. We've lost some of the fat kind of characteristic of the sound, some of the woolliness, and also kind of some of the kind of low-end heavy nature of the sound, so it will possibly cut through the mix a little bit easier, and when you're loud on stage that might be quite useful actually. So you really can tailor the sound pretty heavily with this pedal. If we go to the blue setting and do the same thing, there you can hear the low end come in. And again, if we play with the tone control and the range, a lot of different distortion characteristics from one pedal. So it sounds great. It's very, very versatile. There's a ton of stuff you can do with this. Now it works even better for the higher gain stuff if you push the front end of it, and the Steel Park is voiced perfectly for this. Again, you can check out the Steel Park Boost video on the channel. I'll link again, as I say, to that below. Let's take the lower position, so the least compressed distortion rather than overdrive. Again, let's chop the distortion down to about 7. So now we've got this. We'll dial in the range and tone as well. Sounds pretty good. Let's push the front end of the amp a little harder. Here's our clean tone for reference. So on its own, you can get a decent amount of distortion out of it, even if you are running lower gain pickups like these. If you're running hotter pickups, like active pickups, you can get a ton of distortion or saturation out of it. For this guitar, I'm going to run the Steel Park in front. Now the Steel Park is off camera slightly, you can't see it here, but I'm running the upper position, which is basically the mid boosted position, and it's the upper mids that I'm running in terms of the boost. Then the volume and drive is set about halfway up and the tone controls are neutral, and we go from this to this. So you can really push the front end of this pedal really nicely, and it doesn't, for want of a better term, crap out. It just works really, really well. It's fantastic. This combination is particularly potent. They work really, really well together. If you just want sort of a multi-channel style setup for your distortions, you can go from clean to kind of a nice crunchy distortion, all the way up to saturated crazy amounts of distortion for lead lines, which is fantastic. Now, if we play with this a little bit more with the boost in the front of it, now you can really hear the compression difference between those two settings. So there you go, it's pretty impressive. Again, through a clean amp or through an already dirty amp, this thing absolutely kills. It's fantastic, it sounds superb. And again, very affordable, handmade in the UK, great quality components, very, very easy to use and very, very versatile indeed. So that is the Monolith from Black Country Customs. As usual, guys, if you click the link in the description below, there'll be a link down there to take you to the Black Country Customs website where you can check the full details of this pedal. And they're available all over the place. They're very easy to get hold of. Purchase them from your local Black Country Customs or Laney dealer. All right, guys, if you enjoyed this demo, make sure you hit the like and subscribe buttons below and hit the bell notification icon so that every time I upload a video, you guys get notified first. My name's Tom Quayle. Thanks for watching, and I will see you all in the next video. Bye-bye.